I know there are a few more people that are going to join us, but this is a terrific group. We really appreciate your joining us tonight. I'm going to go over a couple of things before we get started. But first, I want to introduce Sheila Schuster, who's going to co-present. She's up in my top left corner with the red jacket on.
Red for mental health. That's our advocacy color in Frankfurt.
All right.
Yeah.
And then I want to introduce Jen Jackson, who is the co-president with Mary. I think I saw Mary Hughes over, yeah, with glasses over on the far right. Jen is our host tonight, and she's going to be monitoring questions in the chat room. And then I want to introduce Mary Jo Rogers, who is our co-legislative liaison to the legislature. She and I are co-conspirators in Frankfurt when we can go to Frankfurt. And we would welcome your help as we go through all of this, as we learn to monitor bills. Our plan tonight is that Sheila and I are going to walk through the Legislative Research Commission website and show you how to find your legislator and how to find out information about him or her, how to find bills on particular topics, and how to find bills that legislators have filed, how to find committees and their membership, their schedules and their meeting agendas. And we're also going to show you how to watch committee meetings and House and Senate proceedings and how to track bills. The Legislative Research Commission website has a very nice bill tracking function that allows you to put in the number of a bill and you will get notified when things happen with it. And then we'll talk about contacting legislators, how to find the phone numbers and that kind of thing. And then we want to be sharing information about bills with our members and our friends. And Jen is going to show us just a little bit about Outreach Circle to let you know it's available. And if you want to use that to learn about what's happening or to share with friends, that would be great. And then Sheila did a very nice piece yesterday on how a bill becomes law. And we're going to hold that for last. So if some of you sat in yesterday and want to drop off at that point, you can. Or if you're like me and you need to listen to things a couple of times to really get them to sink in, you're welcome to continue. Mm-hmm. Let me also say we sent you a couple of documents. One is how a bill becomes law. It's the Legislative Research Commission's pathway to legislate how legislation actually becomes law. Then another piece that you have is something that Sheila and a colleague put together called Kentucky General Assembly 2021 Accessibility. Right. And we may, as we get to the end of that, talk about that a bit. Because of COVID and the limited access to the annex, there are a lot of different rules that are in place that are not usually in place. And then the legislature has the LRC staff has put together many ways to stay connected to General Assembly action. And I sent that to you too, just as another option. So Sheila, are you ready to jump in?
I'm absolutely ready. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. When you're looking for the Legislative Research Commission website, the quickest and easiest thing to do is type in LRCKY.
Right.
And generally what pops up is the Legislative Research Commission, kentucky.gov. And once you get familiar and you know exactly where you want to go, you can go straight to bills or the statutes or legislators or the calendar. But when you open it up, you should get this lovely picture of the Capitol. And if
Right.
that's what you get, you know you're in the right spot. So Sheila, where should we go?
Well, if you want to find legislators, let's go to the far left under legislators, and you can see that they're listed by Senate members, House members, who's my legislator, and contact a member. So let's say that you don't know who your legislator is. Let's go there first, Cindy. And we're going to get a map, and you're going to type in, you want to type in your home address, great. And then you're going to get that little icon down there. And when you click on that, it's going to take you to Cindy's senator, who is Senator Alice Forgy Kerr, and her representative, who is new, right? Killian Timoney?
Right, Killian Timoney. There he is.
Yeah. So you can click on their picture or view their bio page. Let's do that. And there we have Senator Alice Forgy Kerr. And you can find out where in Kentucky she's representing. You can find out how old she is usually, religion, education, civic and other organizations that she belongs to, which can sometimes tell you a lot about a legislator. It's helpful to look at that. And then you want to see, is she new or has she been there for a while? Well, she's in her 21st year. She was elected in 1999, so she started in the 2000 General Assembly. Those are 4-year terms, so she's been elected 4 or 5 times. Then it tells you what session standing committees she's on. The BR is a budget review subcommittee on education. You know, appropriations and revenue is the big money committee. That's a very plum assignment. She is a member of the Economic Development, Tourism, and Labor. She used to be the chair of that committee until she got in trouble with the leadership. One time she voted the wrong way and she lost her chairmanship. She's on the Education Committee, Health and Welfare, Judiciary, and then what they call the VMAP Committee, Veterans, Military Affairs, and Public Protection, which is one of those committees where if you read the title, you would have some idea about what they would be considering. But for instance, all the abortion bills go to that committee. So think about that. That's a public protection issue from the leadership's point of view. So those are the committees. She's on a lot of committees because she's in the majority in the Senate. The interim committees are those committees that meet between June and December when they are not in session. And sometimes legislators pick up some extra committee assignments. She's also on a couple of what they call statutory committees. So one is the Education Assessment and Accountability Review. She's obviously interested in education. She's on the Education Committee and then on this statutory committee. And then a very important but very boring committee is the Administrative Regulation Review Subcommittee. So let me just take a second to say, you know, we think so much about advocacy being around changing laws, changing statutes. Well, I always tell people that passing a law is like framing your new house. So those of you who have been through that god-awful process of building a house or a building from scratch, you have the blueprint and you frame it in. So you have the outline of what it's going to look like, but you can't live in it. And the regulations are what fills in all that makes it livable. So it crosses all the T's and dots all the I's in that statute. It puts in the flooring and the wiring and the plumbing and so forth. So those regulations are very, very important. And the regulations come from the third branch of government, the executive branch. So the legislation that enables the regulations comes from obviously the legislative branch, but the regulations come from the administration. So right now there's a lot of feuding between the legislature and the governor's office or the executive branch, and some of that has been around the administrative regulations. So that's an important subcommittee that she serves on. You'll also have the information over in the far left corner about what caucuses she belongs to, and the caucuses typically are either geographic, like the Central Kentucky Caucus, or they're by issues. So she belongs to a women's caucus. There are very few women in the Senate, 5 or 6 maybe. And she belongs to the Bourbon Trail Caucus. So if you're a bourbon aficionado, you might be interested in knowing that. And she belongs to the Kentucky Sportsman's Caucus. So what you want to do on this page is to learn as much as you can about your senator or representative. Then in that column on the far right, it tells you her Lexington, she's from Lexington. It gives you a mailing address for her, which is a home address. It gives you a Frankfurt address. She actually lists her home phone number, which a lot of the legislators do not do. That's very open of Alice to do that. And that invites you to, particularly if you're a constituent, to contact her at home, not in the middle of the night and not when you're mad, but when you want to be in touch with her. It gives you her LRC or her Frankfurt phone number and extension. And then it gives you her email address, which is an LRC or Legislative Research Commission. Also gives you her Twitter handle. And I noticed that most of us on this call are probably a little bit in the older generation, so we may not be as up on social media, but I am told by all of my younger friends and my kids that that's the way to be in touch with people. So if you really want to follow a legislator and know what they're doing, the way to do that is on their Facebook page and on their Twitter handle. And you could learn a whole lot. In fact, a lot of the legislators now are scheduling appointments with people and having private conversations with people via Facebook private messaging and also Twitter. So don't discount that as you know, a source of contact. Do you want to go back, Cindy, to legislators, and let's go to the legislative page a different way. Let's go to the House members. Yeah. So here you have pictures and you have the names alphabetically of all of the legislators. So we know that your new one is Killian Timony. So let's go down and find him this way. So if you already know your legislator, or you know the legislator you're looking for, it doesn't necessarily have to be your legislator. This is the way to do it. So there's Killian, and you want to tap on his picture. And there he is. He's younger than Senator Kerr. He's a Fayette County public school employee. He's Catholic. He has a bachelor's and master's from UK, and he's active in the Bluegrass Sportsman League. He just started, so you can see his service. He was just elected in November of 2020, so this is brand new. If you saw him in Frankfurt, he would look like a deer caught in the headlights. He's still trying to figure out where the bathrooms are and where he's supposed to be at any given time. So he's on, one of the things you'll notice, he's on many fewer committees than Senator Kerr. Some of that is seniority, but some of that is also just the sheer number of legislators. So we have 38 legislators over in the Senate and the same number of committees as we have in the House, where we have 100 legislators. So you understand that you're going to have fewer assignments, legislative assignments. He's a Republican, and he's on licensing, occupations, and administrative regs, which again is not real clear what that. They do a lot of healthcare licensing. In other words, all of my psychology bills, I'm a psychologist, all of the nursing bills and so forth go through that committee. They also do whiskey and beer regulation, and they regulate horse racing. So the professions are in there along with the beer and whiskey and the horse races. He's also on education, which makes sense, and then he's on tourism and outdoor recreation. So he doesn't give you a home address. You notice that his mailing address is the same as his legislative address, and he doesn't give you any kind of a home phone number. He only gives you his Frankfurt phone number and his LRC, but he is on Twitter. So Cindy, he's a new representative. Let's say that you're just finding out that he's your representative and you want to make contact and you are a constituent. So my advice to you is to send an email to that killian.timony@lrcky.gov. And in the subject line, you would put, "I am your constituent."
Already.
Good. So you don't do that to 138 legislators, folks. You only do it to your House member and your senator. First thing in that body, you want to say, I live on, and you give your home address and so forth. And here are the things that I'm interested in. I would like to talk with you about, very simple, what's your burning issue? You know, you were with the Pritchard Committee for so many years, so it's an education issue. And he's the guy for you, right? He's a Jefferson County employee. He's on the Education Committee, so you have to assume that he's going to be interested in talking with you. And that's how you make that first connection. And that's how you would use that LRC website to find legislators.
And I'm already following him on Twitter.
Great. So you will find out a lot about him on Twitter for sure. So let me stop here and see if anybody has any questions about that. We just used Cindy as an example, but you can see where all of the legislators are listed there, House and Senate. Any questions? Okay, the other thing, and you're right over there, Cindy, under the General Assembly where it says House members by district and House members by county. The districts are numbered. The lower numbers are in the far west, and then they get higher numbers as you go east. So if you wanted to see the whole list, and you can kind of then zone in on your central Kentucky, let's say. So you're going to be looking at Killian Timoney, you're going to be looking at Susan Westrom, you're going to be looking at Sherilyn Stevenson, right around Kelly Flood, yeah, Ruth Ann Palumbo, George Brown. So you can see they're all kind of clumped there together, and you can find them that way. So you can click that picture, click on the picture, and it's going to take you to their web page. I always warn people, some of these legislators have been in the legislature a long time, and they had that picture taken the very first year they were there. So the ravages of age have not shown up on their picture. So some of what you see in person may look a little different than their picture, but you can get a lot of information from this website. And I would advise you to not ever go into a meeting with a legislator where you haven't checked the website and gotten a little bit of background information. What you're looking for is some way to make a connection so that you can establish a relationship with that legislator.
So here's the.
So there they are by counties, yeah. So there's all of your.
And then here's Jefferson.
And lots of Jefferson, right. And then the party affiliation. Now, you know, in the House, there are 75 Republicans and 25 Democrats. So they, the Republicans in both chambers have what we call a super majority. A super majority is 3/5 of the seats, and in both chambers they have 3/4 or more, which means technically that they can pass any kind of legislation, one with an emergency clause. They could do a budget bill outside of the regular budget session. They could do an issue to be put on the election ballot for a constitutional amendment without ever getting a single Democratic vote. But I also want to caution you that you should not discount your Democratic House members and senators. They still have a voice, and they are exercising that voice, and they still have a vote on the committees that they sit on. And they can sometimes be very effective sponsors of your bill and co-sponsors, because we are trying to get some sense of bipartisanship when we look at sponsors and co-sponsors. Can you think of anything else that we need to cover here on legislators, Cindy?
I don't think. I think one of the things you'll find is once you've gone through this, if you just prowl around on the LRC website on your own, you'll find lots of really good information.
Right, right. You want to do committees since that's right next to legislators?
Right. Okay.
Let's go to committees, and let's start with the House. So there's all your House committees. And remember, I mentioned BRs. BRs are budget review subcommittees. So when you think how important and big the budget is, they divide in each of the chambers these smaller groups of legislators to look at only a portion of the budget. So the first would be on economic development, public protection, tourism, and energy. There's one on general government. There's one on health and family services, which is where I do most of my advocacy around mental health and healthcare and access to care, disabilities. There's one just on justice, public safety, and the judiciary, personnel, public retirement. Now, public retirement and the pension system has been in the news lots and lots and lots the last couple of years. There's one on post-secondary education, and then one on primary and secondary education and workforce development, and one on transportation. So you will have a member of the Appropriation and Revenue Committee, which is kind of the umbrella committee that has the votes. And each member of that committee will be the chair or serve on as a liaison to one of those budget, or maybe more than one budget review subcommittee. So Jason Petrie is a brand new chair for the A&R committee. Stephen Rudy from Paducah, who had been the chair, was elevated to the position of majority floor leader. So he's the one that, if you watch the session on KET, he's the one that's calling the bills to the floor and kind of managing the floor for the House. So Jason Petrie is an attorney from Central Kentucky and has taken over that position. So what you want to do is to kind of look through. You've got Kelly Flood from Lexington on there, Ruth Ann Palumbo. So you have two Democrats that's on there from Lexington. You always want to have some people on the A&R committee, the money committee, because they wield a lot of power at a time when we're looking at the budget. So again, you could click on any of those names and it would take you to their website page. But if you go over to the right, you see the staff people, and then you'll see the meeting information up there. Yeah, let's see what's, so you can go ahead of time and find out when they're going to be meeting. For instance, they met on Monday. You could get the agenda for that meeting. And if you click on that Monday agenda, Cindy, yeah, just to show people. So that's what they were talking about at that meeting. And that's going to be one of the few ways that we're going to know what's up for discussion in the committee meetings. So 21 RS is the 2021 regular session. That's what that means. HB, of course, is House bill, and then the number. So all of those 191, 92, 93, 94, 95 are all different sections of the budget. And you see that they're all put out there by Jason Petrie, who is the chair of the Appropriations and Revenue Committee. So that's what they met about on Monday, had some discussion, voted those bills out of committee, probably along party line votes, and then went to the floor yesterday for the House, or maybe late on Monday, and voted it out. They're on a really fast time track during these few days. So it will show you some of the other meetings. When they get into more regular session and they're not so rushed, you can also get the minutes of the meeting that's already been finished. So you could click on that and pull it up and get at least some sense of how that meeting was conducted. Also on an important committee like A&R, Appropriations and Revenue, Kentucky Educational Television, KET, almost always broadcast those meetings, and then they are archived online. And you can go to the KET website and find those. You want to do that while we're here, Cindy? If you go down to miscellaneous at the bottom, over on the far right, and go to KET. Yeah.
Okay, there's an easier way to get to it, but let's
is there?
let's
Okay.
go ahead and do that. Whoops.
What?
That's not what we want.
Well, we may need to do it your easier way, because that's kind of a roundabout way. So
homepage, do you want to talk about the committee, the committee schedule, or Well, let's
Yeah,
go down to live to coverage.
okay.
So it's really easy to find how to watch bills. You just go to the live coverage. And there are two ways to do that. One is the KET coverage.
Right.
And because they're doing all their meetings online, the second option is the YouTube feed.
Right.
And so if you go to the live coverage, you get Legislature 1. Whoops, sometimes you get ads. And that's the House.
Right.
Legislature 2 is the Senate.
So there's your schedule for tomorrow. If you wanted to watch, I have 2 bills of interest in that Health and Welfare Committee meeting tomorrow. That's a Senate committee. They're going to be hearing Senate Bill 38, which is a bill to get rid of what they call smoke in the operating room. So those of you who are nurses or physicians understand what a health problem that is. And that bill is being sponsored by Senator Julie Rocky Adams. And then we have a bill being sponsored by the committee chair, who is Senator Dr. Ralph Alvarado from Winchester, and that's Senate Bill 21. And that would increase access for youngsters, 16 and 17-year-old, to mental health services. So we're very interested in both of those, and we've sent lots of letters and had people call the message line. So I will be glued to my screen tomorrow. I would have been in Frankfurt with my red on if we were allowed to be there, but I've tried to touch base with the committee members to tell them how important these bills are, and they're hearing from lots of nurses and patients and child advocates and providers and so forth. So, but you could have a busy schedule tomorrow, and then you can watch the Senate at 2 o'clock, or the House is probably going in also at 2 o'clock, maybe at noon tomorrow. I haven't seen.
And then to get to the actual meetings, when it's time, you click on one of these.
Right, right. And then over to the right is where the archived ones, it's under the box that says, yeah, live. And there ought to be some archived ones in there, Cindy, let's see. Yeah.
Yep.
So these are committee meetings that were held today and in the past couple of days. So if you were interested in what happened in those committees, you could click on that, and it should be the tape. Now, I don't know on the Facebook Live. Yeah, there's the Senate Judiciary Committee. The Senate rules and the House rules have changed because of COVID. In the Senate rules, they are expected to be in the room and to vote in the room, but in the House rules, because the number of people on committees is so much larger, they can actually participate from their office via KET or via, a platform, Blue Jeans, and they can actually vote remotely, which is quite a change in the rules to accommodate 100 House members.
If you don't want the meeting that you're interested in here, you can go to the, it's a YouTube channel, Sheila. It's not a Facebook. And they have meetings that have happened. If the meeting is going on when you click on this, it will say live. But then you can also go to, I think it's over here. See, I don't know if I can get over it. There is an archived list over here. So you can go and watch anything that's happened, any of the meetings they've covered. And they're trying to cover every meeting now since we can't be there. So if you can't find your meeting on KET, you should be able to find it on the YouTube.
Yeah. One of the things that's not clear, what are those mental health bill numbers that we could call to support? Senate Bill 21, thank you for asking. And if you call 1-800-372-7181, Call first thing in the morning and ask for your message to go to all members of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. So that's Senate Bill 21. Ask them to pass that to increase access for youth to mental health services. Thank you very much.
And if you go to About Us, which is at the bottom of the main page, you can get their key numbers, the message line, the bill status line, the calendar line. And if you don't have internet, you can actually call the calendar line, and late the night before or that morning, the list of committees, when they meet, and their agendas are listed.
Right.
I think they're still doing that, right, Sheila?
Yes, they are. And if any of you have ever called that 1-800 number, the first time you call, it takes an extra minute or two to get registered by your home address and your home phone number and your name. And then after that, they'll pull that up very quickly. They will ask who you want the message to go to, and you can have it go to a single member of the legislature. You can have it go to a committee, or you can have it go actually to a whole chamber. And then you want to be very succinct in your message. So a short 2 sentences maybe. As I say in my trainings, I don't know what kind of medication those folks are on, but they are uniformly pleasant and patient and very helpful. So if you're navigating it for the first time and aren't sure, ask for help. The other tip I would give you is that if you are going to follow legislation, and Cindy's going to talk to you about Bill Watch, you really need to remember the bill numbers. There will be 500, 600 pieces of legislation in a very short period of time. And so if you talk to a legislator or leave a message and say, vote yes on the mental health bill, there could be 20 different mental health bills, and they won't know if it's a House bill or a Senate bill or what the number is. So it's really important to remember the number. And also remember that the bill number doesn't change as it goes from one chamber to another. So if you have House Bill 123 and it passes the House and goes over to the Senate, it is still House Bill 123. It does not change to Senate Bill 123 that might be about pig farming or something and not mental health.
So I just wanted to kind of talk about a few questions that have come up in the chat box.
Yeah,
and I actually had a question about this too, but when you talked about smoke in the OR, could you clarify what that is? Surely you can't smoke cigarettes.
No, this is not cigarette smoke. It's the use of lasers, and the lasers create smoke as they, I guess, burn into flesh and burn in, and the metal that's in, when they're putting things into your body that are metal and so forth. So there's a long history of this accumulated smoke in the OR, and it has up to 150 dangerous carcinogens in it. So if you're an OR nurse, we have an OR nurse who is testifying tomorrow who's been in the OR for 32 years and has had numerous health problems because of OR smoke. So there is an evacuation system that hospitals really ought to be using, and it's not terribly expensive, but they really just need to be directed to use it. So if you've had a lot of surgeries, in fact, there's some concern that if you're even having a cesarean section and you're in the OR and you have this neonate that was just delivered, that you really want to get in and out as quickly as you can. So that's the smoke in the OR.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
And
nobody's
then,
smoking that I know of.
Yeah, I was like, I've never seen that in all of my training. But
I do remember my OB smoking before we went into the delivery room, but that's a whole nother story. So.
And then you may have mentioned this while I was letting people in, but did you review what are the mental health bill numbers that people could call to support?
I don't have them all listed with me. Why don't I send a list to Cindy afterwards? Thank you very much. Okay. And I tell you, I'm very careful about when I send out alerts for this reason. If we have a House bill that we're pushing, there's no point in you contacting your senator about it until that bill is ready to move out of the House and over to the Senate. And it doesn't matter how interested your senator is, say, in mental health. They have so many Senate bills that they're dealing with that they don't want to take up any of their headroom by worrying about a bill that they don't have in their possession. And people get real turned off because they called the wrong legislator, if you will, and they start talking about this bill. And very often the legislator will say to you, do we have the bill? Which is their way of saying, is the bill over in my chamber? Has the bill moved from the House to the Senate or the Senate to the House? And a lot of times advocates don't understand what that question's about. And that's what the question is about, Jen. So right now, this is a rarity actually in this short session that they are having a committee meeting tomorrow. Most of the committee meetings have been about the priority bills that the Republicans have had to roll back the governor's executive powers and some of those things. So we're not really sending regular alerts until we get into the second part of the session, which will start on February 2nd. So I'm happy to send you some of those bills that I think you all would be interested in, some of the education. One of them is to stop corporal punishment in the schools. Did you know that Kentucky is one of the few states that still allows corporal punishment in the schools? And we know that's bad for kids' mental health. So I will send you some of those. Thank you for asking.
Are there other questions, Jen?
No, I think we are caught up. Thank you.
Okay. So Sheila, let's talk about legislation, how we find bills of interest.
Okay, let's go to bills. And then let's go to the 2021 regular session. And let's say we already know what the bill number is and we want to get a copy of the wording. So let's go to Senate bills in the left-hand column about halfway down under bills and amendments. Keep going down to the pink Senate bills. Whoops. Yeah, click on that. And then go to 21. We'll use that as our example. And there's my mental health treatment bill that I told you about. Senator Alvarado is the sponsor, and it's an act related to mental health treatment. And it will give you a summary of what's in that bill there. And it also tells you what other index headings. And then if you go down to the, keep going, yeah, you'll see where it's pre-filed, meaning he put it out there before the session opened, was introduced in the Senate, and then it was assigned to the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. That's what that means. And then we know it's going to have a hearing tomorrow because that's when they're meeting. So go back up, if you would, Cindy, to where it says introduced, where it's blue. Click on that. And there you have the content of the bill. And then you can download that or copy it or put it in your computer where you want.
One of the things we also know is that a bill shows new language in this law when it's bolded and underlined and italicized.
Right.
And language that is deleted is actually deleted, like this number 1.
Right,
So
it's bracketed, it's bracketed and struck through, right. Yeah, good point.
So that's how you know what's new and what's been removed.
Yeah, so if you could go back to the LRC page where we came up with this, yeah. This bill is introduced and that's the form it's going to be heard in the committee. If the committee made a change in it with a committee amendment, and that's what was passed, then there would be a new version of the bill that would say revised or amended. So you want the most recent version of the bill when you go to click on it. So you can go through and see all the bills that have been introduced. Senate Bill 1 was one that pulled back the governor's emergency powers and so forth. That's assuming that you know the bill number. Let's show you how to find a bill if you don't know the bill number. So if you can go back, Cindy, to bills, yeah, 2021 regular session. Now there's a couple ways to do it. If you come under Senate bills, if you know that you know who the sponsor was, so come down to Senate bills with title and prime sponsor and click on that. you can very quickly go through, for instance, if you know it's an Alvarado bill. Of course, Alvarado is prolific with his bills, but you can find a bill sometimes by the sponsor that way. But I'll tell you the best way, I think, to find it. If you can go back again, Cindy, to that page. Go to the far right, yeah, under Bills and Amendment Index headings. And here's all the different index titles. So let's go down to M for mental health. Right. And then you're going to see mental health counseling, child access to. You see it right there. Yeah, Senate Bill 21. That's the best way to search by content. And if there are several bills about the same content, then all of those bills would be listed. And then it gives you the link to click on that, and it would take you back to where we were on the page with that front sheet that shows you who the sponsors are and summarizes it. Now, let me go back for a second. You also have resolutions. You see under the mental health flag designation that says House Resolution 13 and Senate Resolution. Resolutions have the force of law, but they're temporary in its duration. So they leave those for less weighty situations like naming the state tree or naming the official mental health flag or things that are not kind of life and death. And so sometimes you have what they call a simple resolution. That's what this is. It's only going to be heard in the House. Sometimes you have a concurrent resolution, which means that it's going to go to both the House and the Senate. So people sometimes see HCR, which is a House concurrent resolution, or Senate SJR, Senate joint resolution. Resolutions, again, like if you're going to set up a task force, we have a task force for people to study people with severe mental illness. We only want it to last a year. So we're doing it as a resolution and not changing statute, put it in there. That makes sense? What other questions can we answer about finding bills? Sometimes it's a hunt and peck. You could go to education. Let's go to elementary and secondary education. At the top there, Cindy. Yeah, because I suspect that you all are interested. So child abuse awareness and prevention, required instruction, corporal punishment, physical discipline, use of, prohibiting, that's House Bill 134. That's a bill that we have been pushing for several years. That's Representative Riley, who's a retired school principal. So again, you can go through youth at risk, high school graduation, all kinds of things around lots of education issues. And that's just primary and elementary and secondary. And then you have post-secondary as a different category. Election and voting, yeah.
This is the one that we pay a lot of attention to.
Sure.
I've been keeping track of these bills pretty closely. So if you were interested in any particular issue, you could check and see what kinds of bills have been filed. And a lot of them get filed.
Right. So one of the things that I suggest, if you have an issue and you're trying to figure out who might be a proponent or a sponsor of your issue, one way to check on that is to look at previous sessions for that title in the index and see who has had legislation around that issue. So one of our issues we've had for 20 plus years is the restoration of felons' voter rights. And so if we're interested in that, let's say that I'm brand new to this and I want to know who's worked on that in the past, I could go to the Bill and Amendment Index for this session to see if anything's been filed, but I can also go back to 2020, 2019, 2018, all of those are in there and the indexes are in there. So you could go back and do a history, if you will, around that issue and find out, you know, you could go down to 2018 regular session or something, and let's see who might have. So I see a question in the chat, are all of those bills introduced this session? Yes. And actually that's a smaller number than usual. In a 60-day session, which is the long session in even numbered years, we have close to 1,000 bills that are filed, which is why you have to remember the bill numbers when you're going to talk to your legislators, because they don't have staff, most of them. They might share a receptionist with 3 or 4 other legislators, but they don't have anybody who's keeping track of all those bills for them. Do you want to go and talk about the Bill Watch at
Let's
this
go to
point?
Bill Watch. Bill
Yeah.
Watch is on a lot of pages, but it's also on the home page at the bottom. Very easy to spot. So if you want to keep track of a list of bills, you could go to this Bill Watch. You can, if you sign in and register, and I can't do that because I've already done it, but it's a real easy thing to do. They want to know your name, your email address. They'll ask a couple of questions. And since I'm already pretty easy, quick and easy, you can decide whether you want to subscribe to the newsroom, Kentucky.gov newsroom. I don't do that. Your username, your password, security questions, so that they know that you have privacy. And if you're already registered, which I am, whoops, I am registered over here. You all are in the way. I'm going to log in. The nice thing is it does keep your password, so you don't have to remember your password. That's an old password from years ago. Once you get into this, you can define how you want to be alerted. And so I think they allow you to do your email. I don't want to be disturbed between midnight and noon, so I guess I should change that to probably 8 in the morning, but you can create that. And then you can say what you want them to alert you to. I have them alert me to everything, anytime anything happens to a bill. Now, once you get that set, then go to bill tracking. And all you have to do is fill in over on the right here, Senate bill, you put in your number, and I'm just going to put in 10 and track this bill, and it shows up over here. Oh, it doesn't exist yet. Let's do Senate Bill 5. Let's see if that exists. And it will show up over here.
Yeah, there you go.
And anytime anything happens to that bill, you will get a notice, an email notice about what happens to it. I've been following Senate Bill 1. I got all these notices. And once you do get a notice, you end up going to the page, the basic same page that is in, if you click on the bill, and you get the bill number, you get the sponsors. This one has already been passed in both chambers, and it's been delivered to the governor. You
Right.
get the Senate committee substitute, all of the amendments that have been filed. And then this is the action, starting from pre-file down at the bottom, up through, it was passed 26-5 in the Senate on January 9. It was enrolled and signed by the Senate President on the 9th and signed by the Speaker of the House, and then it went to the governor. So you get the whole listing of exactly how that bill passed through the legislature. And you'll get a notice every step of the way.
So you'll get a notice when the governor vetoes it, which he undoubtedly will do. And then it will come back on February 2nd when they come back into session, and probably that day or someday shortly after that, there will be a vote to override the veto in both the House and the Senate, because that's one of the emergency actions to pull back some of the governor's emergency powers. But the Bill Watch is a neat way to keep track. There's no doubt about it.
Bills can move really quickly, and it's really hard if you're not there and you're not checking each bill each night to know what's happened to it. So this is a really good way. I don't recommend that you put too many bills in here because your inbox will be loaded with information.
Right.
So you want to be selective. Some bills will never move. So you may never hear anything about it. This is a bill related to election districts. This is our bill that would create a redistricting advisory commission. It's not likely to go anywhere. It has been introduced in the House and it was pre-filed back in August. So probably little will happen to this, but I've got it in here. So if anything does happen, I'll know about it.
You know, one of the changes that they made in the rules, Cindy, for this session is that instead of bills having to be assigned to a committee within 3 days of their introduction, they changed that, and now the leadership, the committee on committees they're called, can hold on to the bill indefinitely. So we'll know certainly when we come back in February, those bills that were introduced in these first 2 weeks in January that the leadership essentially are killing by never assigning them to a committee. So they will never get a hearing or any kind of action. And I unfortunately think probably that House Bill 23 is likely to be one of those. Yeah.
Right. I hope that will be temporary and
yes.
that will change. They are limiting the number of bills. They're this session, and they're limiting committee meetings to supposedly 1 hour, although we know some have gone over. So they're not going to hear very many bills. If you have a bill in committee, you can always go to the committee chair and members of the committee to try to get it heard. If it's not assigned to a committee, you have to go to leadership, and that's a bit more of a challenge. They're not quite as accessible.
All right, we have a big campaign going on right now with a bill that would ban what they call conversion therapy, which is really not an approved therapy. It's an attempt to change the sexual orientation or the gender identity of youth. It's House Bill 19, and so we've been flooding, hopefully flooding the 1-800 number to the House leadership, asking them to assign it to a committee, because we actually think we could get it passed in the committee, but we're not sure that the leadership will assign it. So we're waiting on that one. Excuse me while I let my dog out before she drives me crazy.
Okay, are there questions about?
There's a question. So I noticed there was a bill on voter registration and voting. What are they?
Those are, let me go to amendment headings. Those are bills that would enhance voting opportunities for folks. So House Bill 51 would extend voting hours from ending at 6 p.m. to ending at 7. Automatic driver's license, voter registration would be automatic when you got your driver's license. Let's see, the 205 mail-in absentee ballots, it would be an option for voters to vote in person. These are all filed by Representative Stevenson. She's filed a number of bills that would enhance the opportunity for voting. Many of these individual pieces are things that we experienced during the primary and general election.
Right.
Now we understand that Secretary of State Michael Adams is going to work to get a bill together that would combine a number of those and make them permanent. What we do here is the legislature is not interested in excuse-free absentee balloting. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we'll probably try to be promoting. So that's what these bills are. And these have been filed by a member of the minority party in the House. And so it's not clear whether her bills will get a hearing or not. Let's see if they've been assigned to a committee. Nope.
No, still in the committee on committees.
Committees. And by now it should have been assigned to a committee.
Right.
Actually, they assigned to a committee within a day or two.
I saw where Margie asked the question about who makes up the committee on committees. It's kind of like the, just what it sounds. It's the highest ranking. So in the House and in the Senate, there are 5 members of leadership chosen by the majority party. And of course, that's the Republicans in both the House and the Senate.
Is that a standing committee?
No.
Or a
No,
special?
it's under, probably special committees.
The impeachment committee.
You know, if you go back to legislator, where the legislators are listed, it lists the, go back, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's the leadership right there. So Stivers is the president, David Gibbons is the president pro tem, David Thayer, Julie Rocky Adams, and Mike Wilson. So those 5 are the Republicans on the Senate committee leadership. The Democrats have 3, so that's Morgan McGarvey. Reggie Thomas from Lexington just got elected. That had been Johnny Ray Turner from Pikeville, who was defeated in the last election, and Dennis Parrott from E-Town. So that's your Senate leadership. And of course, the minority party is always outvoted because there always are more on the majority. If you go to the House, Cindy, to the House legislators, we can see the leadership. Go back up to the top to legislators. Yeah, well, they don't have their, well, I'll tell you who they are. I'm surprised that they're not up there. The speaker is David Osborne, who is from Oldham County. The speaker pro tem is
Oh, I know.
is David Mead. The caucus chair is Suzanne Miles. The I know they're in there someplace because I've seen their pictures.
Yeah, I know. I have too. I'm not seeing
The majority floor leader, the guy who's calling the bills on the House, is Stephen Rudy from Paducah. And then the caucus whip, the one who counts the votes, is Chad McCoy from Bardstown. On the Democratic side, we have 2 women and 1 African-American, which is very nice to see. Joni Jenkins from Louisville is the minority leader. Derek Graham from Frankfurt is the minority caucus chair. And Angie Hatton from Eastern Kentucky is the caucus whip. So again, 8, 5 in the majority and 3. So whenever they talk about, Margie, the Rules Committee or the Committee on Committees, that's who they're talking about. And the majority party appoints all of the members of the committees. And of course, the majority party has the majority of votes and seats on each committee. So you have 75 Republicans in the House and only 25 Democrats. So you have, you know, in most committees of, let's say 20, you're going to have 15 Republicans and 5 Democrats. That's always the way it is. Same thing over in the Senate. You have fewer members over there, 38. The chairs are always of the majority party. So I always remind people that, you know, most bills are not defeated because they're ever voted down. They're just never taken up. They're never debated. They're never voted on. They never move. So whether they get assigned to a committee or not, that's probably what's going to happen to most of these bills. But the majority party always has all the aces.
And let's have Jen quickly talk a little bit about Outreach Circle. And then we'll go back to our quick session on how a bill becomes law, just as a reminder, refresher for those of you who haven't spent time in Frankfurt. Jen, go ahead.
So Outreach Circle is a new platform that we have. It's relational organizing, which sounds fancy, but really it just means it's designed to help you get the word out to your friends, and it makes it very easy to do that. So if you know how to do a text or you know how to do an email, then this is even easier than that. So basically, I'll give you the link and I'll drop it in the chat box here in a moment. But basically, Outreach Circle is a way for us to, as a league, to post information to keep you informed on different things. So when you log in on your phone, this is kind of what you'll see. There's different what we call actions. And so each one of these, which is kind of in a little frame, and has a button on it, is one action. So we had one for building fair legislative maps. Here's probably, they talked about an easy way to get to view legislative proceedings, and this is probably the easiest way because we have it already set into a link here. You just click the button and it will automatically pull up the live streams. So this makes it really easy. Also, if you notice, now that I've done that, it also allows me to share it with my friends and let them know that, hey, you can also watch the proceedings. And so you can do that by emailing. And guess what? We already, the email message is already written out for you, so you don't even have to construct an email. It won't do it on the computer because I don't have my contacts added here. This is sort of designed for being on your phone, but it automatically pulls in your contacts from your email. You can pick and choose which ones you want. And don't worry, it's not directly saving your contact information or anything like that. It just is a mechanism for you to be able to access the contacts that are on your phone. But anyway, it's an easy way to share. So, you know, if we're really looking at having transparency in government, it will be important for people to actually pay attention to what's going on in Frankfurt, because people aren't going to be able to be there in person because of the coronavirus pandemic. And this is a really simple way to be able to share it with your friends and other people who might be interested. And this links to the archive, so you can watch past proceedings. There's also going to be information about redistricting that we will post. You can also get voting information. We had this posted when the election was going on. So there's a lot of easy links to get you to where you need to be to get the key information that we are sharing. So I will put it in the chat box how you can join. Yeah, and then if y'all want to join Outreach Circle, you can do that and keep up with what's going on, and then also find out what's going on with legislators.
Can you contact legislators with it, Jen?
So that is in the works. That is a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
But the great thing about Outreach Circle is that the league nationally has a contract with Outreach Circle. And so the engineers who create kind of the platform have been talking with us about this, specifically the things that we need. It is sort of this two-step process where everybody's got kind of different people that represent them. So it's a little more complicated than being able to just plop a link in there, but we are working on it. So, so hopefully we'll have that rolled out in the next few weeks.
That's great. I'm impressed.
Thank you, Jen. We're going to now move to the process of how a bill becomes law. And for those of you who've already heard this, you're welcome to stay or drop off. But before you drop off, if you are interested in following particular legislation that would help Mary Jo and I as we try to figure out when to send out action alerts and what kinds of issues we're going to be talking about, feel free to pop a note in the chat box and let us know you're interested and give us your email address. And if you have an interest in a particular area like the environment or voting or education, make a note of that if you would. because it's impossible for volunteers to keep tabs on all of this. Sheila does this full time and a half, and has
And in
been
the middle
doing
of the night very
in the middle
often.
of the night, and we do some of that too. But it's really it's a monumental task, and we could use help. So if anybody's interested in that, please let us know. Any other questions or comments before we move on to how a bill becomes law?
I see there's a question in the chat, I guess for Jen. Is Outreach Circle proprietary to League of Women Voters US?
So the answer to that is no. So Outreach Circle was primarily designed for campaigns to use to reach out to their supporters. However, the League of Women Voters realized that it could also be used for the type of work that we do. So right now, so because the League of Women Voters National has signed a contract for every single league chapter to be able to have an outreach circle, we are kind of one of their major clients, if you will. And then also, since everybody's campaigns are kind of finished right now and wrapped up, we definitely have their attention. And so they're able to dedicate a lot of resources to helping us fulfill the types of things that we want to be able to do with it. Unlike a political campaign where they're kind of like here for 9 months or a year and then gone, since we will be sticking with them for many years, I think they're going to be really responsive to the things that we need.
Neat.
Mary Jo, did you want to say something?
I'm unmuting. Yes. Since Jen and I do this 1-2 punch, for transparency's sake, I need you to know that the League of Women Voters nationally keeps up with all the little check marks that you make. If you send out to 5 people a certain announcement, they know what, I don't know, they know what announcement we send out, but they know that like I send out to 5 people, they know I've been active out on a particular issue and have sent it to 5 people. So it's one of those platforms that counts also, that it's, we can say, oh, look, our newsletter's been opened by, 42 times, like we can do. This will also give the National League ability to keep up with the activities that are going on.
But also be reassured, even though it's counting how many people you sent it out to, they don't have access to who you sent it out to. So they don't have access to the contact info for those people. So it's more of just like a numbers thing, but it will allow us to understand what content people are interested in, and helps us kind of tailor content to what people want and are interested in and what they're using. But it also will allow us to potentially get grant money and that type of thing too. So it's also really important for that.
Great, thanks, Jen.